Once upon a time, there lived a little frog at the bottom of the well. Every day, the frog swam in the well puddle, explored the walls of the well, and gazed upon the little round sky above him. He told himself, "I'm a lucky frog. No one in the world lives better than me." A big bird happened to fly by and stood on the edge of the well. Upon hearing the boast of the frog, the bird said, "Jump out. I'll carry you to see the big ocean where the water is immense and the sky has no limits." This famous Chinese proverb, 井底之蛙, literally means a frog at the bottom of the well. But the phrase really implies someone with limited outlook and experience in life. The ending of the story always bothers me every time I heard it growing up in Taiwan. I have always wondered, before the frog has the audacity to dream about swimming in the big ocean, is the frog ready to be out of the well? Will the frog survive in the big ocean? I like to identify myself as the big bird, preparing my students, the little frogs, a journey outside the well. Learning another language will certainly take them beyond the little well they live in. However, simply learn the language is not good enough. We all know certain words and phrases exist in some language, but not in another. We all eat different foods, celebrate different holidays, and have different habits. Our thinking processes vary from one culture to another because we all interpret our world differently. It's also important to understand that certain concepts may exist in one culture but not in another. For instance, children whining was a very strange concept to me when I first came to this country. Children in my culture do not whine. As a matter of fact, if you look up the verb to whine or to complain, you will have the same Chinese verb, 抱怨. And English speakers know that whining and complaining are two different actions. And the concept of children whining simply does not exist in the Chinese cultural language because in that culture, children are expected to behave like grown-ups. The In's culture would simply let a child be a child. It's the same way we look at teenagers. We know they are moody, they are rebellious, and they may behave irrationally because they are raging hormones. One of my teacher friends described her high school students as someone walking around with underdeveloped frontal lobes. It's socially accepted that teenagers will be teenagers. Several weeks ago, when I registered my teenage daughter for her summer camp, I forgot to include myself as someone who can pick up the child from the camp. So the camp counselor refused to let me send her out. Frustrated, I half-jokingly yelled to her, who was standing outside the office tapping on her phone. I said, "Would you please tell this nice lady that I'm your mother?" Still on her phone without looking up, she answered, "Well, I don't know. Do I know you?" You can understand my embarrassment. So I turned to the camp counselor and I said, "Trust me, no mother would pick up a random teenager of her own free will." The camp counselor was laughing so hard, she let me sign out my daughter without further ado. When I returned the following week, she had shared my teenager comment with other parents. So you see, I got out of trouble by telling a teenager joke. However, I once offended somebody by making a similar remark in a different culture. I met this German teacher in a conference in Germany. When she told me the age of her own children at home, I said, "Wow, 3 teenagers at home. That must be hard." Any American parents at this point of time would have started on talking about the trials and tribulations of raising teenagers. This woman, to my surprise, looked at me sternly and said, They are all good kids, and walked away. I think I offended her so much, she avoided talking to me for the rest of the conference. Let's go back to the frog story. Let's say the frog has learned different languages and understand the cultural differences, and he's ready to leave the well, and he wants to pack his suitcase. Here we have 3 bags: perseverance, mama's homemade cookies, and sarcasm. Which bag should the frog take? Certain virtues, such as politeness and perseverance, are universal. Mama's homemade cookies? If they fit into your suitcase, why not? However, as we open up our minds to the outside world, we also need to leave something in our culture behind to avoid misunderstanding in another culture. It is important to understand that I teach in the International Baccalaureate program. The writing samples of my students are often graded by teachers in other countries. One of the most frequent comments I say to my students is, be very careful about the sarcasm you use in your writing. It may not be appreciated in another culture. And I use a personal example. Every summer, I take my children back to Taiwan to visit their grandparents. Before they leave the house, I always tell them to leave your sarcasm back at home here in America, no matter how funny or punny you think the situation is going to be. My parents consider my children are extremely rude and insincere when they say something but mean something else. Opening up your mind, look at the world from another culture's perspective is as important as learning another language. Over the course of my teaching career, I have taught many little frogs. One of them did the artwork for my presentation today. There's also one special frog. Let's call him Froggy. When Froggy was a freshman in high school, he was the loudest frog in my classroom. Not only he was loud, he was sarcastic and loved to argue. Froggy croaked or argued for 3 years. One day in his junior year, he told me this: for the past 3 years, every time I open my mouth, you put me right back in my place. I was just so used to look at the world only from my point of view. That self-realization was a pivotal point for him. In his senior year, Froggy won a scholarship to visit Germany, his first trip outside of the whale. In college, Froggy grabs every opportunity he gets to travel around the world. He was especially proud of himself when he was able to use his German skill to navigate the streets in Poland where English is not as common. The latest I heard from him is that he's learning the art of haggling in the markets in Vietnam, where he works as an intern. Now he has opened up his mind to true cultural understanding. His sky has no limits. Our children and students may have the audacity to dream, but as their parents, teachers, and community leaders, are we preparing the way that their dream can really come true? I see myself more than just a language teacher. I prepare them to become global citizens. They need to learn the language, they need to understand we all interpret the world differently, and most importantly, they need to open up their minds to the world beyond the whale. And don't forget, once upon a time, I was that little frog in the whale in Taiwan, and I have used my second language, English, to teach my third language, German, for the past 19 years. And I can say I survived in the big ocean. Being prepared to have the audacity to dream will ensure a dream can really come true. And it is my biggest dream, one day, when all the little frogs are out of the whale, they can all live happily ever after. Thank you very much.